First, Russia's invasion itself violates the central pillar of the UN Charter, respect for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of all nations. Second, Russia is committing war crimes and crimes against humanity in Ukraine on an almost daily basis. Third, Russia continues to engage in reckless nuclear saber-rattling, announcing that it's stationing nuclear weapons in Belarus and continuing to use Europe's biggest nuclear power plant and its employees as a shield for its aggression, risking catastrophic consequences. Fourth, Russia is weaponizing hunger. Thanks to the Black Sea Grain Initiative, brokered by the Secretary General and Turkey, approximately 33 million metric tons of grain reached global markets, driving down food prices around the world. Nearly 2/3 of the wheat exported through that deal went to developing countries. Not only did Putin pull out of the deal, but Russia is now mining Ukraine's fields, bombing its ports and rails, burning its silos. As a result, Ukraine's wheat exports will likely fall by 2.8 million metric tons this year. That is the equivalent of 5.5 billion loaves of bread trapped in the world's breadbasket.
Since the start of the full-scale aggression launched by the state, which for some reason is still present here among the permanent members of the UN Security Council, there's already been 574 days of pain, losses and struggle. Russia has killed at least tens of thousands of our people and turned millions into refugees by destroying their homes. Most of the world recognizes the truth about this war. It is a criminal and unprovoked aggression by Russia against our nation, aimed at seizing Ukraine's territory and resources. But it's not just that. The terrorist state is willing, through its aggression, to undermine all the grounds of international norms meant to protect the world from the wars. And I'm grateful to all those who have recognized Russian aggression as the violation of the UN Charter. Ukraine exercises its right to self-defense, helping Ukraine with weapons in this exercise by imposing sanctions and exerting comprehensive pressure on the aggressor, as well as voting for relevant resolution, would mean helping to defend the UN Charter. The resolutions of the General Assembly have clearly recognized the fact that the only source of this war is Russia. But this has changed nothing for Russia in the United Nations. However, these are the situations that have changed everything for the UN. We should recognize that the UN finds itself in a deadlock on the matters of aggression. Humankind no longer pins its hopes on the UN when it comes to the defense of the sovereign borders of nations. World leaders are seeking new platforms and alliances that could reduce the disastrous scope of the problems that are met here within these walls with rhetoric, rather than real solutions, with aspirations to compromise with killers, rather than to protect lives. Life should be defended uncompromisingly to ensure successful protection.
Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General, colleagues, the existing international order was based on the ruins and following the colossal tragedy of the Second World War. Its basis was the Charter of the United Nations, became the Charter of the United Nations, the key source of modern international law. Largely thanks to it, thanks to the United Nations, a new entire people residing on the given territory. End of quote. To the fact that the Ukrainian neo-Nazis who seized power in Kyiv did not represent the population of Crimea and Donbass is something which does not need to be proven, and the unconditional support from Western capitals of the actions, criminal actions of Kyiv regime is nothing other than a violation of the principle of self-determination subsequent to an egregious violation in interference in domestic affairs. Poroshenko and Zelenskyy adopted racist laws on the prohibition of everything Russian, education, media, culture, the destruction of books and monuments, prohibition on the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, seizure of its property. These all became blatant violations of paragraph 3, article 1 of the UN Charter on the respect for human rights and basic freedoms for all, without distinction as to race, gender, language and religion. Not to mention the fact that these actions directly ran counter to the constitution of Ukraine itself, the Constitution, which sets out the obligation of the state to respect the rights of Russian and other national minorities.
Subscribe to Oneindia channel and never miss an update.